canción. Bueno es Dios, Dios. Oh, bueno es Dios, Dios. Oh, bueno es Dios, Dios. Oh, bueno es Dios, Dios. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. And let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. And let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. And let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. You're never gonna let me down. 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 'Cause you are good, you're good. Oh, 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 you're never gonna let me down. 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 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good, so good. Oh, you are good, you're good.
Today, we are blessed to have a number of different visitors on campus, and one in particular I'm excited to introduce you to. My good friend Rosa Whitaker is here from Accra, Ghana. Rosa was the first ever U.S. trade representative from the United States, appointed first by President Clinton and then reappointed by President George W. Bush. She went on to found the Whitaker Group, which pioneers U.S.-Africa trade and investment. I got to know her because Rosa and I served on the board of the ministry Mercy Ships, where she also served as president. She splits her time between Washington, D.C. and Accra, Ghana. Dr. Darko and I have had a chance to visit her and her husband. He is pastor of Action Chapel, amazing mega church there in Ghana. They have an extraordinary ministry that reaches really all across Africa and around the world. Her granddaughter, Miracle, is going to be an incoming freshman in the fall. And so they are here. Miracle, welcome. We're glad to have you, Taylor. And so it's not every day that I have somebody of Rosa's stature here on campus. So I asked if she might just come and bring greetings. Would you please give a warm Taylor welcome for Lady Rosa Whitaker?
Wow, it is such a blessing to be with you this morning. I thank God for the work that he continues to do here through the students, the faculty, and the visionary servant leadership of my friend Michael Lindsay and his awesome wife, Rebecca. Great to join you. So I bring you greetings from Ghana, West Africa, my second home, where I spent a great deal of time. And I spent a lot of time with thousands of students who are sitting, albeit on the other side of the Atlantic, where you sit today. They are, too, in institutions of higher learning, honing their gifts, praying and preparing to become beacons of light in a troubled world. Now, across Africa, I am often asked by your peers the one question, and it's the one question I like to share today, and it has to do with the one thing I wish I had grasped when I was sitting in chapel as a university student. And it's the wisdom embedded in John 15, where Jesus calls us to abide in him as he abides in us, reminding us that just as a branch cannot bear fruit apart from the vine, neither can we thrive without remaining deeply connected to Christ. As you pursue excellence in your faith and learning, continue to draw strength from him. This is the thing that I knew, but I wish I'd held even more strongly to as a student. Bear fruit that impacts your university and ultimately the world for his glory. Just as a fish cannot operate and function without water, a tree branch will wither when disconnected from the vine. We can only navigate trials and experience real triumphs when we stay connected to our vine, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And trust me, there is no strategy, no program, no technology or plan alone that will unlock your promise unless you stay connected to the vine. So I just want to conclude with the short story that I heard once. You know, a pastor was concerned about the Bible knowledge of the church's Sunday school. So he made a surprise visit to the Sunday school, and he asked the class, who broke down the Jericho wall? One student said, Pastor, it wasn't me. I know they blame me for everything, but I assure you, I didn't do it. And then the Sunday school teacher said, Pastor, I assure you, he didn't do it. And the pastor, still concerned, he brought the matter to the board of trustees. And they just said, Pastor, don't worry about who broke it. We'll pay for it. And so what's the moral of that story? The moral of that story that as believers with the best intentions, we can get disconnected and be so earthly focused that we miss the main point. May God bless you abundantly as you remain rooted in him. Thank you.
Okay, so we got 20 minutes. Let's not blow it. So I'm going to skip through my story pretty quickly. I was 21 when I became a believer, older than most of you guys, right? And the second week I became a believer. They made me a Sunday school teacher of the college kids. And I found out that there was a church down the street that did what somebody called was teaching. And so I'd go to their 8:30 service, learn something, go back to my 10 o'clock class, and then teach it. That's how I began to understand kind of about the kingdom. So maybe 2 years after that, the Lord had a deal with me where he said that we have not spent much time together, and he wanted me to do that. And his guideline was, if I spent time with him in the evening and if I talked to him for 5 minutes, he said, I would really like for you to listen to me for 5 minutes. And so I developed what I would say is the skill of listening to him, which isn't as common as you would think it is. Actually, we're kind of rude to God. And when we're together, we tend to talk all the time. Have you ever had any friends that talk all the time when you're together? So he told me that I was kind of like that to him, so I've learned to listen. And during that season, I got my assignment to go live in China for him. That was in '72. We didn't get a chance to go at that time until things settled down politically. I got married, had 2 kids. In '87, we moved to China. We arrived on a Saturday, and on Monday, I put my kids in public school, and off we went. We had no plan to have a business because you couldn't legally have your own company at that time. But 2 months later, the laws changed, and the rules allowed me to have my own business. And so I prayed about it. We put in an application. They say it would take 1.5 years to get done. I thought that would be good because then we could finish our language and get ready. But it took 30 days and we were up and launched. So this is kind of what we looked like back in that day. We lived in a 100-year-old home. Do you see how naive I was? These are some of the things that we made. Stained glass products. That little series of houses, we were known to be the best in the world at. We actually invented that line. And then these were bevel glass doors, and our customers said we were also the best at that. This is a big piece of art glass in the federal courthouse in Orlando, Florida. The architects searched for 5 years to find a company with the technology that could duplicate it, and we were the only one in the world that could do it. This was tabletops we sold through Home Depot. That was actually concrete. Now, here's the point that I want to share with you. I heard that I am yoked together with Jesus. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. I'm gentle and humble heart. My yoke is easy and my load is light. Honestly, in China for the first 5, 6, 7 years, I thought he was false advertising. We were not finding an easy yoke. The average time that people like me, missionaries in China in the 80s, were surviving was 2 years. Very few people lasted 3. We lasted 30. But it's because we switched from this. So one day the Lord, he showed me this picture and he asked a question, Bill, if this is the case, if you and I are yoked together like this to pull the load of sort of your calling or your destiny, what percentage of the load is yours? What would you guys say? 2 animals pull 1 load. What percentage is each animal carrying? You guys, I think you have real good math programs here, is that right? And so I said, Lord, I think half the load. And he said, son, I love you way too much. I would never do that to you. You would never survive. And I thought, well, you can't just take that away and not give us like a replacement for us. And so then he gave me this picture. And in the picture that I saw, I was the younger guy, and he was the bigger guy, and he had a bamboo carrying pole on his shoulder, and it was carrying the weight. And because I wanted to sort of be a participant, I got under the pole and was trying to lift it. So let's say on the left basket there was 50 pounds in there, and I'm carrying 30. That was okay for a minute until the 50 pounds immediately became 500 pounds. And the bamboo bent a little bit more, and now I couldn't bear it. And so I had to get closer to him, and then the 500 became 5,000 pounds. And then I realized he's carrying the entire weight. I'm not actually contributing at all. And I thought, wow, this sounds better. I like this idea. So I shared it a few times, and then somebody asked me to share it to a group, and I knew there were some Greek scholars in the group, and they're going to nail me, because they say, you can't just change the meaning of a classic passage like that. And so the Lord woke me up at 3 in the morning before I was going to talk, and he said, get your Greek out and your iPad, and I want to show you something. There's 2 Greek words for yoke. One is this one, the 2 animals linked together. The other word, that word was zugos. The other word is zygos, and it actually means like the little beam that carries 2 scales. And it's actually technically called a beam of balance. And that's the word Jesus used. So when he told the story, take my yoke upon you, that's the picture that he actually meant according to the Greek language. So if the two of us are linked together, what is the capacity limitation of the pair? Well, that would be me, the weaker of them. But if we're together this way, what is the limitation of our capacity? He is. I'm not contributing anything. This is an entirely different way to live, not unlike the abiding that we heard about a minute ago. So the question really is, how do you actually do that? So let me give you a couple of illustrations. We're just going to move right through here. Regarding money, how do you let him carry the weight regarding money? So one day I get a knock on the door in my office. It's my financial manager coming to me. And he goes, boss, I got some really bad news. Unless we get $350,000 in 14 days, we have to shut down your company. And I go, oh, well, he was saying, shut down my company. I then went to the Lord. Well, I would have processed it differently when I was thinking the old way. When he left, I would have thought, I have to come up with $350,000. I would try to think of my rich friends. I would probably worry. I'd probably lose a lot of sleep. Under this new way, I'm thinking, he shut the door, and I looked up and I said, did you hear that? You have really got a problem this time. If you don't come up with $350,000, I got to shut down your company. What do you want me to do? And he said, I want you to pray and fast. And so on the 7th day, we got $172,000. On the 11th day, we got $200,000. I said, Lord, this is great. Are we done? He said, no, keep going. We were actually trying to raise $1 million to do a big transition. And on the 13th day, a Chinese Christian businesswoman came and she said that she would give us the loan for the $1 million that we wanted. And so I began to see this easy yoke thing is actually pretty nice. So, regarding hiring people, how do you experience the easy yoke regarding hiring? The first person, I got to confess, the first person I hired one day a year later gave me a phone call saying, we are now enemies and we must fight. I will kill your children. And I will kill your wife and then I'll kill you. And if I die, it doesn't matter. The one thing that was a takeaway was that I'm no good at hiring people. And so I had to look to the Lord to find out, how do you do that? One night I was walking home. This is a picture of an alley about 4 houses from my house. And it was dark that night. The door on the right side was open. And as I walked past it, somebody pulled my shirt to just kind of make me stop for a second. And I looked in the doorway. I'd never really paid attention. And there was a little face on the ground, for a better way of expressing it. A little 8-year-old girl. She had polio. And the story in the newspaper that I heard about was that her mom didn't want her and put her in a wooden boat. We lived on the coast, and pushed her out to sea to get rid of her. And somebody rescued her, took her back home, and then her mom put her in the garbage can at the end of the street and left. And this lady took her out of the garbage and was raising her. And so as I met her, I walked and saw her. I stooped down, introduced myself. We started chatting. And then every 2 or 3 weeks, the Lord said, I want you to go back and see her. And then when she graduated from high school, I told her that we were hiring people with Corel Draw computer skills. And so she got a teacher, and I gave her a test. And she was already really good, better than our people. So she entered into the company on her own skill set. This was kind of what she looked like earlier. She has a little aluminum walker. She could make it from here to the exit door in probably about 10 minutes, getting over there. So as the company grew, she grew. Today, she is running our entire operation. She is the best hire that we ever had. And I had virtually nothing to do with it other than responding to the Lord. Everybody say, that was easy? That was easy. The girl on the left, she's second picture is also her. She's one of my heroes. She had a 5th grade education. You probably wouldn't think that you would hire her to be a manager of a big operation, but she became the manager of a bevel glass production line that we had that became the best in the world. One day on Thursday, she was leaving work about 6, and the Lord said, go back and pray for the people on the 3rd floor. And so she did, And then about 10 o'clock that night, wouldn't you like to have people who are obedient to the Lord like that in your companies or in your churches or in your schools? So another girl came over at 10 o'clock and she said, what are you doing? Oh, the Holy Spirit sent me to come pray with you. And so they prayed till midnight, went to the top of the building, and then prayed till the sun came up and just went to work the next day. 6 weeks later, she asked if she could borrow the sound system for the company. I said, sure, what's going on? She said, oh, we're having a little outreach. And we're going to take some people to a park and share the gospel. Really, I'm thinking 10, 20 people. She said, well, we have 256 signed up so far. And 30 people came to the Lord that were on the third floor of that production line that she prayed for that day. She's a star, tons of stories about that. One of the things that we learned, became this book called The 10-Second Rule by Claire DeGraff. He's a friend of mine. He heard me share the story, so he wrote a book about it. And it really is about how do you actually walk with God on a moment-by-moment basis. And the theory is you just have to be listening all the time. But if you're listening all the time, you'll get it. He'll say, I want you to talk to this person or go do that. It's just a sensitivity as all as it is. So the little guy on the left, his name was Wang Haisheng. I drove to the parking lot, got out of the car, and he was there, and he goes, hey, boss, how are you? And good to see you. And I go, hey, who are you? And I'm not your boss. And he said, well, you're going to be. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I've been looking for you for 6 months. It turns out that he heard about us while he was in jail for begging, and he mentally wasn't all there. And so it had taken him 6 months to find us. And so I just checked with the Lord, Lord, are you wanting to hire this guy? He said, hire him. And so we got him a job. We actually had to get him his ID. We took him out, got him a house, a shower, some clothes, and he started working with us. And he told me that he had he liked to do different things. And I said, I don't care what you like to do, you got to do your job. And he talked me into letting him go to team number 1 on Monday and serve them doing the things they don't want to do, and team number 2 on Tuesday, team number 3. It turned out that the output of the whole company went up 20%. If you look back at 10 years of productivity, this little guy made $1 million extra profit for us. By the way, we probably handed out $87 million in salaries to the community that we wanted to be a blessing to. And the company recently, last 5 years, averaged giving away $430,000. The little girl in the wheelchair is running the whole thing. Isn't that great? So, the guy on the ground, his name is Xiao Sun. I was walking past a restaurant, and he was begging there, and the Lord just said, talk to him, get a story. And so I got his story, and he became an employee, became a believer. He actually went through a 2-year pastoral training program, and he would meet me at the top of our building, because every day we're commanded not to worry, right? And in a company, that's hard to do. So I would meet with him and pray on the top of the building until he could look in my eyes and see no worry. And when there's no worry in my eyes, I'm free to go home. But if I'm still worried about things, I can't go home yet, because that's not allowed. And so he was my partner for that. Then he became kind of ornery. He wanted to start a company in his hometown and wanted me to finance it. I've prayed about it, and the Lord said, no, not a good idea. And so he abandoned us, and he took on a little illegal business of running around with a 3-wheeled motorcycle delivering people and packages. And then he called me up and he said, boss, can you meet me for dinner? And I said, well, sure. Well, what's the deal? And he drove up in this red car. It's the same guy. And I said, man, you have got to tell me this story. He said, well, do you remember when I was doing that illegal business in the tricycle? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I got hit by a car, and it sent me airborne, flying through the air. And about halfway through the trajectory, I remembered I'd walked away from the Lord, and that would not be a good way to land. And so I repented in the midair. And I landed in some grass, and then the Lord gave me a chance through my own province to actually finance my own car. So he became a personal driver, and he said, I could tell everybody that gets in my car about Jesus. So you wouldn't have thought that when you saw a beggar on the street, initially. But this is under the easy yoke. You begin to just be responsive to the Lord and let him carry all the weight. Right? So, it's this easy, right? Now, because I went to a communist country, Christians got all upset with me, and they said, man, this is going to be bad. This is really going to be hard because they're going to be all over you. And they are very observant. I took a Uber from a hotel to the Shanghai airport recently, and 5 minutes into the call, I get a phone call. 5 minutes into the ride, I get a phone call, and somebody from Security Bureau saying, sir, we noticed you did not put your seatbelt on in the back seat of this Uber. We think it's a good idea for you to buckle up. And I'm thinking, whoa, they are really keeping an eye on me now. But around 2000, most of the factories in our city, and our city was 20% bigger than Los Angeles, or twice the size of Chicago from a population point of view. And so they came up with an award, in Mandarin it's called the 最爱员工的老板, for the boss who loves his workers the most. Isn't that a weird award? But the problem was, bosses were not typically good people. They were like straight slave drivers, and so they wanted to get some examples of good bosses. And so it turns out that they gave me that award. My HR manager went down to nominate me, and the government said, we already know about Bill because your employees call us all the time. I just want to tell you there's no competition for this award. It was like super easy to get, really. And so they gave it to me for the first year and the second year and the third. And the fourth year and the fifth year and the sixth year. And the seventh year, and they came and said, we got to give it to somebody else. So then they gave it to us the ninth year, and then they quit doing it. So, just to let you know. You can have an impact in a communist country just by walking with God. It's easier than you think. Don't carry the load and think you have to do anything you don't have to do. Let Him guide you, and He will give you access to stuff. So in 2008, they had the Olympics, and then that was followed by the Special Olympics. They had pretended they didn't have people with disabilities in their country. And so all of a sudden they saw, well, the world doesn't feel that way. Maybe we could do that as well. We were the subject of positive discussion in the city council meeting on 3 occasions because we brought beggars in off the street, and nobody else did that. And they all became a believer within 1 week of being in the company, and I have 20-year, 30-year relationships with some of them now. I mean, they're real family. So on the International Day of Recognition of People with Disabilities, after the Special Olympics, 3 government officials came to my office, and they didn't tell us they were coming. And they started off by saying, we just want to know, why do you do this? And so I said, well, a long time ago, I met this new friend, and this person was so good to me, it was unbelievable. And so I just asked, could I ever do something back to you or for you? And my friend said, if you ever get a chance to help people, just help them. And so they were there for an hour and a half, and during that time, 3 people on crutches happened to go by the office, and they came in and got their stories. And so I took them off to the elevator and said goodbye to them, and one of the government officials, Communist Party member, leans over and she goes, that friend of yours, that was Jesus, right? I said, you got it. That was it. So even in communist countries, you will have chances to benefit or to influence them. So we got 2 minutes left. I would like to pause here and give you 3 tools that you can use on your cell phone to help you in the kingdom, okay? We good? Okay, so everybody get your phone out and go to contacts. And I want you to type in Jesus in your contact list. If you have Jesus in there, I want you to stand up. What is the deal? So honestly, it's not a big deal if you have Jesus in your contact list, but it's a huge deal if you think of Him like a contact. Is He not your best contact? Right? I mean, like, He's super available. You don't even have to email Him. He's always dialed in, and He's super capable. So you just need, under the easy yoke thing, you need to be close to Him and just bring Him into whatever you're facing. So you might even put 3 of them, the Father, Son, and the Spirit, but that's another discussion. Now, go to your stopwatch. Timer, little stopwatch thing where you can time something. I was looking for a piece of aluminum. I couldn't find it for 3 hours. And the Lord shows up. And He says this to me. You're doing it again. You're acting like you're alone. in the world. You could ask for help. Well, his attitude just tweaked me a little bit. And so I got my phone out and I said, I'm just going to see how good you are at this thing. So, Lord, would you help me find my piece of aluminum? And I put him on the watch. 24 seconds later, I had it. I did this in Tennessee, where I was working on a car. 3 days, I couldn't find a tool. 52 seconds. I landed in the Beijing airport one year, and I landed at 3. The airport closed by snow at 4, and I didn't know if I was going to get out the next day, and my visa was expiring. It was really important. And so I go to the airport. Now there's 10,000 upset people. They have a new roped-in area. You can't even check in until you get approval that your flight is actually going. I'm 5 hours ahead, and it's iffy. And I'm standing there trying to have a good Christian attitude by not being upset. And the Holy Spirit shows up, and he says exactly word for word the same thing. You're doing it again. You're acting like you're alone in the world. You could ask for help. You're so right. Lord, would you help me get to my city, get to Xiamen? Within a minute, another lady from a different airline walks up. Sir, where you want to go? I said, I'm trying to get to Xiamen. She said, give me your passport, follow me. She takes me around behind the counter. Up comes the boarding pass. She says, hurry, it's boarding right now. 35 minutes later, we were airborne. And I'm just thinking, what kind of an idiot am I? I could choose to live with him in everything in every way, and I still insist on independence. It's just my default. So I just want to encourage you, the stopwatch thing works really good, and I want you to use it. The last thing is go to your calendar sometime and look up 400 years from today, the year 2400, and pretend you're there looking back at the decisions you make today. And ask yourself, how will I feel about these decisions today, 400 years down the road? It will help you develop an eternal orientation. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.